there's certainly a view I hear from companies, for example, that they're being bombarded by attempts to steal data, by attempts to break into their system, by particularly not just private actors, but state actors. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea are frequently named. Exactly how bad it's been, I don't think we know, because companies are very reluctant to say when something happened if they don't have to. Of course, it affects 100 million customers. They're forced to reveal the information, though sometimes with a lag. We've seen this. But it's just a huge issue. I did attend a cyber warfare conference at the Naval War College at Rhode Island half a year ago, which had many of the leading policymakers, academics who work on this. And I think I had to hide under a bed for a week after being at that conference. It was just, incredible, trying to think about how to deal with these issues. I think a question to me as a macroeconomist is, to what extent is this sort of like a tax on the system, and you have to deal with it as a new age cost of doing business, but like the old age costs of doing business, you learn how to handle it. So exactly as the chair said, entrepreneurs can think about what they ought to be doing going forward, not having to worry about this. And to what extent could this be systemic? To what extent might you see, for example, a big problem in the banking system going beyond finance, a shutdown of a major part of the electricity grid, et cetera? One thing I learned was attending this conference, and maybe one other, a lot of the vulnerabilities come from legacy systems, particularly that big players have. You all know, you probably own a PC and you get warned periodically. If you don't update your software, you're not the latest security patch, you're going to be vulnerable. Well, we actually have a lot of systems, I don't know about India, but in the United States, which actually date back to 1972, still using Fortran. We heard some of this when we hit the year 2000, the problem of adding the extra digit that they didn't know how to do. That went by, it wasn't so bad, but many of the most vulnerable systems are these ones that are very difficult to update. They're difficult to put the software patches on, and they provide vulnerabilities to everywhere else. So I don't know to what extent it can be systemic when I think about, where's the next big crisis coming from. This is certainly on my very short list of things that could, for example, spark a financial crisis, spark global recession. That would be much more than you can do in just insuring, individual players against. It's an extremely challenging situation. I have to say, in many ways, your country is more advanced than ours. I think you're farther ahead in tech adoption. The Havard system is something that I suspect the United States will have in 20 years, but we don't have it yet. Various ways of providing more individual security, protecting your data in a more secure way. Finally, a area that links to my last book on the past, present, and future of money, that's very, very active, is thinking about how new age cryptography solutions could try to mitigate some of these problems, to try to provide firms with ways that are a little more foolproof. Not clear those exist yet, despite all the hype. But this is something, for example, in the financial world, everybody's working on blockchain. I'm not sure if that's just so that they can advertise that they're working on blockchain or whether it's substantive. But I think there's general interest in cryptography to try to protect yourself. One piece of advice I've heard is on your individual computer, which is very vulnerable, that the recommendation of these experts who would make you hide under your bed if you listen to everything is that you should use these encryption possibilities on your hard drive, on your computer, for your files, that the newer versions of the operating systems have. I have an old computer. I tried updating my operating system, and then I tried to put the encryption on, and it said, no, your computer is too old, it won't do it. So I think many people have that problem. But anyway, it's very interesting and refreshing to see the survey. I can't answer how it was done. As an academic, I know that, these are suggestive. You need to do 100 of them to get a full flavor of what's going on, but you have to start somewhere. And this seemed very interesting. So maybe I should stop there. I'll sit down and just see.